Right. We're finally doing it. We're reviving this channel. We'll see how long this lasts. Okay. Starting a new series on dialogical logic. Yeah, that's a weird thing to say, but dialogical logic is the logic behind dialogues or interactions between people. Sort of an argument thing. One person states something and the other person disagrees and they argue, and it's basically just the study of the logic behind arguments between people. Now this is really interesting because it provides a new way to look at logic and proofs in logic. So in logic we have certain statements um like of this form, A arrow B, which stands for if A is true, then B is true. A is a statement. The arrow here represents implication, the if-then statement. So if A is true, then B is true. So we have statements like these. We have statements like this. This symbol represents and. This means the statement A and the statement B is true. We have the same thing for or the or symbol is just this, the and symbol flip upside down. And this means either the statement A or the statement B is true. And we have this as well. If we have this symbol in front of or before a statement, this just means the opposite of the statement. So this just reads A is not true. Right, so we have statements and ways to combine and build statements together. And we also have, fundamental truths, let's say, or we can just say as theorems within this framework. For example, A implies A is like a fact. It's you can basically call it a theorem. If A happens, then A happens. Duh, obviously it's true. Right? But we can't just say duh, obviously it's true. We have to be able to explain our reasoning behind that, even though it's very simple. Right? So there are fundamental truths, such as this we can call theorem here. If something happens, then something happens. Right? It's a pretty stupid theorem because, well, it's super obvious. Anyone can understand that. But yeah, all theorems have proofs. There is an underlying explanation as to why they are true, and dialogical logic will provide us with a framework that helps explain that sort of reasoning in the form of a dialogue. So how do we do this? Well, we start with the setup. Of course, a dialogue involves, let's just make sure this is all recording still. Yep. A dialogue involves an interaction between two people, and these two people I'm going to call O and P. This is just the regular convention. I'm going to take a break to drink once in a while, so if you hear silence, that's why. Right, and these stand for opponent and proponent, respectively. So the proponent, what they do is they propose or claim that a certain statement is true. I'm going to call that statement S. So we also number the sort of, we call them moves of the game. Like, people like to call this as a game, other people like to call this as an argument, but I guess the numbering system makes more sense. Like, if we call it a game, the numbering makes more sense, because these numbers can represent sort of the moves of each player. So game/argument. So the first move is always gonna be the proponent, and the first move of the proponent is they will propose or claim that a certain statement is true. I'm gonna call it S, and the opponent's job is to challenge the validity of the statement S. And yeah, basically O will have to just be as skeptical as they can, be as doubtful as they can about the truth of S. And they can express this skepticism, this doubtfulness, in the form of attacks. So O can attack the statement S. They can, we'll see what these attacks look like. But based from the statement, the structure of the statement that P provides, there will be different attacks corresponding to that, different valid attacks. So depending on the statement, O has to respond with a specific attack, depending on what the statement is. So you can think of it like, let's say S can be like I don't know, a water slime, right? If this is a water slime, then the attack you can give is probably electricity, right, or lightning, right? And other attacks are ineffective, right? Or if the statement is like a fire slime, then you would use water, right? So depending on the statement, you have the corresponding attacks, right? I'm making this fun. I'm using video game references. I'm trying. Okay. So yeah. In response to the opponent's attack, P can provide a defense, right? Basically the attack means, oh, I'm doubtful of whether or not S is true, and P can be like, oh, what is your doubt? Let me try to address that, and that's the defense. And this can just go on and on and on and on and on, right? O can attack further. Maybe there are like 2 attacks possible for like the statement S. Maybe there are 2 attacks available. For example, like water, you can use lightning, and then you have to provide a defense against that. Or you could probably use fire. Fire will will evaporate the water away. So I guess that attack works as well. And then you have to provide a defense against that as well. Right? And this will just keep going. An attack can also address a defense, by the way. So the attack, this is addressed to here, this attack is addressed to here. An attack can also be addressed to a defense, by the way. So like the attack could be like, I'm doubtful of your defense. I'm doubtful of the reason you provide as a defense. And then P can like address that again. Like, no, my defense works because blah 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 blah. Right? And this is a defense against this attack. Right? So you can attack basically any statement. Not only just this one. O can attack this guy, can attack this guy. Any statement uttered by P can be attacked by O. That's just O's job, to be as doubtful, as skeptical as possible. And this will just keep going, a string of successive attacks and defenses until one of them runs out of a move. And whoever runs out of a move is the one that will lose the game. Now, why is this important? Why are we learning about this? It's because if we analyze this interaction between O and P, and like after analyzing we can figure out who wins and who loses, that information is the same thing as saying whether or not S is true. The P's ability to win, ability to win, corresponds to the fact that S is true. Right? So instead of proving that S is true, right, we can just show that P has the ability to win the game. Right? Right. We don't want to do this because it's boring. It's just a traditional normal proof, right? So there's an alternative. We can instead prove that P has the ability to win this game, this dialogue. And this is a more fun or interesting thing to analyze rather than like constructing a normal regular proof. It's also more intuitive, like the flow makes sense. It's of like the interactions between the people. You'll see like concrete examples later on, but I really believe that doing this is a lot better than doing this. Right? Just whenever you want to prove a statement, just turn it into a game, a dialogue between two people. Analyze that dialogue and see who wins, and depending on that, you know whether or not your statement is true or false. Right? If P wins, then S is true. If P loses, then S is false. Just like that. Just instead of constructing a proof, just analyze the dialogue. Analyze the interaction between these two people. That's the whole idea of dialogical logic. Now, let's see the different types of statements that P can utter, and we'll take a look at the different kinds of attacks O has. So, we have, hold on, let me just grab a book just to make sure, because I have a book on this topic. So we just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. Okay. Okay, cool. So, we have a statement which is uttered by P, the one that P is claiming to be true, and then we have an attack. This is a move that is made by the opponent to as a way to express their doubts towards this statement. And then we also have defense, which is a move made by P. And this defense is, of course, in response to the attack. They attack, and you address their doubts. Basically, the defense is a way to address the doubts of the opponent. So, the different kinds of statements are, we could have an and statement, we could have an or statement, we could have an implication statement, we could have the negation, and we can just have like just a single statement itself. Right. So these are the ones we'll look at today. There's a way to extend this to include quantifier based statements as well, but we'll do that later. So how can O doubt this statement? Let's say. So P says, okay, I am claiming that statement A and statement B is true. So O is doubtful of that. But how can he challenge this statement? How can he express his doubt? Well, O can say, well, if you're claiming that A and B is true, you should be able to provide me with the fact that A is true. You should also be able to provide me with the fact that B is true separately. So if I were to ask you to show me that A is true, you would be able to do that, right? So the first attack is, this is just what it looks like, and 1. And this refers to the fact that you should be able to show me this, right? That's your defense. And the defense is A. And the second attack, right? There are 2 possible ways to attack this statement. And the second attack is just the and symbol with a subscript 2. And this stands for O asking, hey, since you're saying this is true, you should be able to provide me with the fact that B is true, right? Because you're claiming that both of them are true. So if I ask for one of them, you should be able to provide it to me. So I'm asking for the statement B, right? I'm asking for the statement B, and I'll give it to me. And P has to defend with B, right? So this, I'm asking you to provide me that A is true, right? And you should be able to do it. You should be able to defend yourself if this is really true, right? So the defense has to be A, and whether or not P can play that defense will decide whether or not this statement is really true or not. And P also has to withstand a second attack, right? O can attack twice. He has 2 moves available, right? 2 moves at his disposal. And P should also have this defense as a disposal if P wants to win the game. Well, not win, but just like survive this round of attack, right? You're claiming that both A and B is true, so you should be able to provide me the fact that A and B is true separately, right? So I hope this all just makes sense. Now, over here, what kind of attack do we have? We only have one kind of attack. So the statement that P is claiming to be true is either A is true or B is true. One of these statements are true, right? So the attack O can give, right? It looks something like this, right? And this means, oh, you're saying that either one of these is true, right? So if I ask you to show me that one of them is true, then, I'll let you go, right? I'll let you have this. I'll let you survive this round of attack if you're able to provide me with the fact that either one of these is true. So the defense, P has 2 different defenses available, right? This has to always be in at the top one, you always have to respond with this attack with Jesus. You have to respond to this attack with A and only A, and you have to respond to this attack with B and only B. Whereas at this case over here, P can respond to this attack with either A or B, right? You're claiming that one of these statements is true. So O says, if that is the case, then you should be able to provide me with at least one of them. So just show me that A is true, and if you can't do that, then show me that B is true, right? Just give me one. I don't care which one. I don't care A or B, just give me one. So that's the defense. P can either play A as a defense to this attack, or P can play B as a defense to this attack. If for some reason P does not have these moves at their disposal, then they'll just lose the game. Okay, so makes sense so far, I hope. The available attacks and defenses against these attacks. So we move on to implication. If A is true, then B is true, right? That's the statement that P is claiming to be correct. So how can O doubt this? How can O attack this? Well, O can say, alright, I will make it so that A is true. I will say A out loud. Okay, I will admit to the fact that A is true. Now, show me that B is true, right? Because you're saying if A happens, then B happens. Okay, I made it so that A happens. Now show me B happens, right? That's the defense that B has to play, right? So always addressing a concern, right? I'm giving A, I'm making sure that A is true. Now you have to show me B, right? You have to be able to do it. Let me see you do it, right? Because you're claiming that this is true. So let me see you do it, right? And P has to defend himself. Okay, here, I'll B. I'm gonna say B, right? I'm gonna play the move B, right, to defend myself, right? So that's implication. You attack with the left-hand statement, and P has to defend with the right-hand statement. Always, admitting to the fact that A is true. And in response, O request P to be able to provide that B is true. And assuming that this statement is correct, then B should be able to have a defense. And if this statement is incorrect, then B won't have a defense. So this is, the correct set of attacks and defenses for this kind of statement. Now, the negation statement, right? This is a bit harder to explain. So P states that A is not true. So the attack that O can give is to just deny that. O can just say, hold on, I'm gonna take a... Okay. O can just say, I don't believe that. I don't believe that A is not true. I'm gonna say A. Right? So let's say, for example, A is, I am like 5 years old. Okay. So not A is, I am not 5 years old. Right? That's the claim that P is making. I am not 5 years old. And the other person in the argument says, no, you are 5 years old. Right? That's how they're gonna attack. And the sad thing is, P has no available defense against that. So this is a bit weird to understand, because you might say, well, hang on a sec, what if we have this dialogue and P says, yeah, I'm not 5 years old, right? And then that's move number one, right? Move number one is the statement or the claim that P is making, and then opponent goes, you are 5 years old. And then the opponent just wins because we don't have, a defense over here, right? That just, that means any statement of the form, this, just instantly loses because P runs out of moves, right? P can't defend themselves, right? That's why this seems hard to understand, but you'll figure it out later with like examples and stuff. But basically, P can't defend against this attack, but what P can do is make sure that the fact that O admits that A is correct leads to a contradiction. That's the thing that P can do. So P can't defend against this directly, but P can, in some way, if they're able to, force the opponent to say not A as well. So let's say we have not A and then A. That's number 1, number 2, and then some other moves, blah, 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 blah. And somewhere along the line, P manages to make O say not A, then P will win, right? Because O said two different things, two contradicting things. So they just lose the argument because they contradicted themselves. Right, so that's a strategy that P can employ in order to indirectly defend themselves against this attack. Now, here's another weird thing. This statement, O has an attack. I'm just gonna give it with a question mark. And P also has no defense. So this is, how am I gonna explain this? Right, let's say we have A being said at some point by P, some number X, and then the next move they attack this statement A. Now, P can't defend themselves against this statement, so they just lose, right? Well, no, that's not the case. So, how does P defend against this? Because obviously, this will just make the game trivial if P has no way of defending. The defense is again indirect. Basically, P has to do something to be able to force O to say A. And this is preferably done at a previous point in time. So, some time ago, P made sure to play some moves and force the letter A out of the opponent's mouth. Right? So, at some point before this exchange over here, P has managed to make O admit to the fact that A is true. Right? And if P has managed to succeed in doing that, then P can basically defend against this attack. So the defense only applies when O has said A before previously. And the defense is that, the defense, X plus 2, is that you just challenge yourself. Right? You're admitting to the fact that A is true, but now all of a sudden, you're attacking, you're suddenly doubtful of the statement A, but you said it before, you admitted to it before. You're just basically challenging yourself now. And then once P says that, it's already game over for O. Right? So, O is not allowed to challenge themselves, so O, shouldn't just play this move to begin with, right? By making O say this at the previous point in time, you are disallowing this attack, right? Because if O plays this attack, they'll just lose immediately because this amounts to contradicting themselves by challenging themselves. So the defense is to make O say this at the previous point in time. That way you prevent them from using this attack, because using this attack now just turns into you challenging yourself, or the person O challenging themselves, right? So there's a defense over here. It's indirect. You have to make them say this sentence A at a previous point in time to disallow them from using this attack. Right, so that's all of it, I think. And with that said, let's finally take a look at some examples. So, let's start with a real easy one. P is claiming that if A happens, then A happens. Obviously, duh. So we know that this statement is true, but let's create a dialogue out of it, and let's make sure that P actually wins, right? Because this statement is true, right? And we know that the truth of this statement implies that P has the ability to win. So let's see if that really is the case. Right, so how do we attack an implication statement? P just said something of the form of an implication, right? So the attack that O gives is whatever's on the left-hand side of the implication. So the attack that O gives is A, right? And now the defense has to be whatever's on the right-hand side. So in this case, it is A as well, right? P just says A. Now, O can attack again, right? Because, O just attacked against here, right? There's only one available attack there, so you can't attack against it twice because you already played this move already. It's pretty useless to play the same move again and again and again, especially if P has a defense against that. So what else can you do? Well, you can attack this other statement, right? So how do you do that? You attack, you put a question mark down, but lo and behold, P says you just challenged yourself. You just attacked a statement that is said by yourself already, right? So we made O say the sentence A so that now we can say the sentence A, and they're not allowed to attack it anymore because them attacking our statement would be the same as them, challenging themselves or contradicting themselves, right? And so P actually isn't allowed to play this move because they'll just lose immediately. It's an instant loss. It's like trying to checkmate yourself. You can't just do that. So the game just ends here, right? And who played the last move? P did. So P wins. And since P wins, the statement at the number 1 move is true. Cool. So we verified that statement 1 is true by, creating a dialogue. Let's give another example. Let's do A and B implies A, right? This is P, this is move number 1. Is this claim true? Well, intuitively, yes it is. P is claiming that if A and B is true, then A is true, right? If both of these is true, then the first one is true. If 2 statements are true, then the first statement that I say is true. It's pretty logical, pretty easy to understand why this is a true formula, true statement. Now, O is skeptical of that. So O says, okay, I will provide you with the fact that A and B is true. Now you have to show me that A is true. Okay? Now you have to show me that A is true. Let me just erase that. So, can P defend? Can P just say A? No, they can't, because now this move is available by the opponent. This move is now available. Opponent can just attack this statement, and P has no defense because the letter A has not been mentioned before by O previously. So, okay, they just lose now. There's just no way to continue. So, what other course of action can we take? Well, we need to be able to mention the letter A, but to do that, right, we need this because it's a defense against that, right? You're attacking this, so what's the defense? This is the attack. The defense has to be the right hand side, so A. Right? You need to be able to utter this statement out. But you can't do that. First, you have to force the opponent to say the sentence, say the letter A. Right? You can ignore defenses. Right? You can say O is attacking, O is doubtful, but before defending, you can say, well, hang on, I'll get to your point. I'll try to address your doubts in one moment. But let me just ask you this one question first. Right? That's a thing that happens in arguments, right? I'll address your point later. Let me explain this first, and then I'll address your point. Right? You're allowed to do that in an argument, right? It doesn't just have to be like static, like sequential one after the other. You can just jump around between different points to try to, make your argument work out better in favor of yourself. That's like a valid thing you can do. So you can ignore this. You can just have a placeholder here, right? I'll get to this later. I'll fill in this blank later. But first, you can say, but first, let me attack this, right? So P does not only have the role of defending, P can also attack as well, right? So that's the interesting thing. It's not only O that's attacking and P that's defending. P can also attack whatever statement O is spitting out. Because an argument is not just a one-way thing. You're attacking their argument, you're defending against their attacks, but you can also attack their arguments, right? And of course, they can try to defend against your attacks as well. You're just attacking each other and seeing who is left with no argument at the end, who is left without any moves at the end. So an argument really is a two-way thing. The main attacker is obviously O and the main attacker is P, but P is also allowed to attack, obviously. So P attacks. So this statement here has two different attacks available. So P can either do this or do this, right? Which kind of attack do we want here? Right, remember our goal. Our goal is to make O say the letter A so that we can fill in the placeholder here. And since O has said the letter A already, they're not allowed to attack it because it would be the same thing as attacking themselves. Right, so which of these moves would be appropriate? Right, we want this move because it forces our opponent to mention the left-hand side, right? If you use this attack, the defense has to be whatever's on the left. If you use this attack, then the defense has to be whatever's on the right. So we want our attack to be this guy right here, because this attack forces O to defend, right? And the defense has to be this guy right here, right? So O defends, O says A, and now finally we fill in the placeholder. We now say A over here as well. And O can't attack this guy, right? Because O would be attacking themselves if they were to do that. So O has run out of moves, right? You've already attacked this statement. You can't attack this statement. You also can't attack this statement because it's not something you can attack, right? You can only attack statements of these form, right? And, this is not on the list here. There's no way to attack this guy, right? So you can't attack this guy, you can't attack this guy. And this guy over here has only one kind of attack, right? Yeah, this guy has only one kind of attack, and you played it already and things didn't work out for you, right? So that's it. You've run out of moves. You can't attack anymore. Okay, then you just lose. So P wins, which means that this formula, this statement is correct. It's true. Right. Another thing to note is that, P could lose the game, right? P can use this attack instead, B, and then now P just loses because P is not allowed to say A. It just loses to this attack, right? Because O has not mentioned A at all. You failed to force O to mention the letter A, so now they're allowed to attack this. So P can lose, but that does not matter as long as P has the ability to win, right? P has the ability because he can choose to play this move instead of the previous move. So P has the ability to win. P just has to play their hands correctly. If P can play their hands correctly and they win by playing their hands correctly, then that's what counts, not the fact that P could lose by playing this move, right? It does not matter that P wins there because P has two options. So the game can continue in two different ways. This is a win, this is a loss. It doesn't matter that there's a branch where P loses. As long as P has the ability to win, as long as there's one branch where P wins, then the formula is valid. So that's an important thing to mention there. Let's do one more and then end the stream there. And we'll continue with more examples, more complicated examples later on. Let's do if A is true, then A or B is true, right? If this statement is true, then either one of these statements is true. A or B is true. This is, yeah, it's pretty logical why this would be correct as well, but let's verify it through arguments and dialogues. So this should be natural already. O provides this attack. P has to give a defense, but the defense is subject to attack again, right? P just mentioned the defense, right? But this defense is a statement that is attackable, right? If the defense is attackable, right? This is, I'm attacking here, I'm defending against that. 3 is a defense against 2. 2 is an attack against 1. 4 is a move that attacks against 3. And then you obviously have to defend against that as well. So it's just like this chain of attacks and defenses, just so you can see the flow of the statements, the flow of the attack and defenses over here. So yeah, if the defense has like this one of these forms, then it can obviously be attacked again, right? It's just like a, yeah, you can attack a defense like it's like a counter attack or something. You can think of it like as a counter attack. Okay, so you attack this guy right here. You don't, basically this attack against the defense is basically the same thing as claiming, oh, I don't believe in your defense. I think there's something wrong in your defense. Let me attack it. Right? And how do you defend against that? You can either play this move or this move. Those are the two moves you have at disposal. So which one works and which one doesn't work? Can you say B over here? No, you can't, because they'll just attack that, right? B has this form, and this form has an attack that can be made against that form, right? But you don't just have the letter B, you can also say the letter A, right? The defense can be either this guy or this guy. Just pick one of them and then just say it out. So you say this out. Can they still do this? No, they can't, because they've mentioned A already before. Them attacking A is same as them attacking themselves. So no can do. And that's it, you run out of moves. You've attacked statement 1 already, right? Number 2 is an attack against statement 1. And you've attacked statement 3 already. Statement 4 is an attack against statement 3. And statement 5, you know you can't attack, right? You can't play this move. It's not available to you anymore, because you'll just instantly lose when you play that move, because you're contradicting yourself. And so there's no more attacks to be made. There's no more moves available for you to play. So you just lose. You just lose. O loses, P wins. Therefore, this statement over here is true. Cool, right? Again, P over here has the ability to win, right? P can just play B and then just lose the game by playing B, but it doesn't matter. Okay, all we need is for there to be one branch in the possible dialogues or arguments, right? Because there's another dialogue between these two where P said B instead of A, and then P loses. We just need there to be one version of the argument where P wins in order for us to conclude that this statement is true. P doesn't have to win in all the possibilities, just one of them. Okay. That's it for now. I'll give a couple more complicated examples later on, but we don't have time right now. So see you in the next Dialogical Logic stream. Thanks for watching.